Hello, and welcome to the Stitch the Season Slow Stitching series. Today's video is for Prompt 9 out of 10 prompts, all inspired by Christmas and Christmas images. Like all my videos, the previous ones will be linked below, including the planning and prep stage, and feel free to take part at any time. Today's video is for Prompt 9, and the prompt is Winter Scene. So we'll be creating a winter scene. Now you could do this with pre-printed fabric, you can draw or paint your own, you could stitch it, or you can come up with some other method. Now this is the process that I use. So to make the winter scene, I have my ornament backing and my front, and I want to make a snow scene with just a few little trees scattered in. So I want little rolling hills for the snow, and I found two little pieces of muslin that are just off-white, and each one is slightly different. I don't know if the camera can pick up the differences, but one has just a little more beige in it. So that'll be nice for my rolling hills because I have like a primitive color scheme here. So the first thing I'll do is put both of my pieces together here that are going to become the rolling hills, and I just want to cut that down to size so I know exactly what size I'm working with here. It's the same size as my ornament front. And then I want the first hill, the one that's closest to me, to be a little smaller. So I'll just kind of make a rolling hill here. And that's the way I want it to look on my ornament, but I want this color behind it. So I'll set that down just so I know approximately the size I want to get. I guess I want it to be here and come down and maybe go back up. So now I have my scene here, my snowfall on the ground. I'll pin that down into place just so it doesn't move. So now I'm just going to lightly stitch around it with small little stitches going right around the perimeter here. And I'll start in the background, holding my piece in place, and I'll start right from the edge. I'm just going very small, 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch below the edge. And I want to just make a little teeny stitch and pull it snug. Leave a little space and do another stitch. And I'll do this all the way across the perimeter of that top background piece. I'll stay focused on matching that edge, making parallel stitches right to my edge. And I'll continue all the way around for this background piece, and then I'll do this foreground piece as well, and I'll show you the results. So I've completed stitching all the way around both layers of my little snow hills here. Now with my erasable pen here that just erases with an iron, I'm just going to sketch out some areas where I want to put stitched trees just to make this an outdoor landscape. So I'm going to have a tree here, and I'll just kind of dash out the boundaries for it. And then on this side, I think I want to add 2 more. So I'll add one right here. And again, sketching out just a little bit of a boundary. And then I'll have a smaller one. I think I'll have this one come down a little further as well. So now I'm ready to start stitching my trees, and I'm going to start with this tall one. I'm going to take a color here, and I'm going to use a medium green. I have a dark green, a lighter, and a medium green here. And I'm just going to stitch up this tree. So starting at the base, I'll just make a small little stitch. And then again, just to keep a little space in between the ending of my first stitch and my next stitch, and I'm trying to stay on the line here. And this stitch, this series of stitches will be buried. I just like to have a little basis here to start with. And I'll stitch right up that line, right to the last tippy top. And this is just the height of this tree. Now there are many ways to stitch it to make it look like a tree, but I'm going to do something a little bit abstract. So I have my triangle lines here, and I'll just make them a little darker so that they're easier to be seen from the camera. And then I'm just going to start right at the top, just a little bit off my last stitch. And I'm going to bring that stitch across at a slight angle, just to my other mark on that triangle. And then I'm going to go just a little bit above where I came down. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, bringing it down just ever so slightly. And I'll continue this all the way down my tree, just slightly overlapping my stitches. And as I go lower, my stitches will get longer. And I can decide how full I want the tree to be, or if I want to come back in with a different color thread to really emphasize it. So I'll just play around with the stitches, taking it slowly. Again, being careful to keep that triangular shape for the perimeter, but not filling it in completely. I'm not using a satin stitch. Just going across. And as I get lower, my stitches will start to be a little straighter, so they won't be getting deeper necessarily with that angle. There'll be a few, but then I want to work on keeping them a little straighter. I don't want to have a stitch that goes like this, just slightly across. Every now and again, if I want to make a deeper stitch, that adds a little interest. But I'm just trying to almost weave my stitches back and forth. Again, I want to make sure I stick fairly close to that triangle shape. And that's the boundary that I set for myself. Come across. And continue with this all the way just to finish this tree. And here my stitches are not quite such sharp angles now that I'm kind of at the base, but I'm carving out that shape nicely. I'll do one more. Then I'll evaluate and see how it looks. I think it needs one more stitch. So I'll come up here on this side of my tree and come across. So now I can take a look and see, and I see that my top of my tree is a little rounded, and I want it to be a little straighter, come to a point. So I'll bring my stitch up and just come down and kind of build that pointy tree. It might take 2 or 3 stitches to achieve that. And there I have one tree. I'll knot my thread in the back. Snip it. And then I'm ready to do the same thing to these trees. I'll use that same procedure, but just on a smaller scale. And I'll decide which tree I want to look like it's in front, and I'll do that tree last. So I think I'm going to make this small tree in the background be in the distance, and so this tree will overlap it a little. I'll do my stitching, and then we'll come back and take a look at our piece. So now I have all 3 trees stitched the way I like them. I think that looks really cute. I think I'd like to put in a few more trees though, which is a little unexpected because I like the simplicity of that, but I think just a few more little trees right in the background would look nice. Maybe one over here as well. So I'll thread my needle, stitch those trees in different color greens, and we'll come back. So I've added in a couple more trees in different shades of green. I really like how that looks. This one in particular is kind of a bluish color, but it reminds me of like a fir tree, how they're almost silvery. So now I have my scene complete. So I do want to add little snowflakes in the air. I'll just take my thread and add a few little simple stitches. So I have my thread that's the same color that I used to make the little dots to hold down our little snow scenes here. So I'll just stick a few little teeny little white stitches just to be reminiscent of snow coming down. Almost like teeny little seed stitches. I could do French knots as well, but I just wanted something very simple. Gives a little bit of texture and a little pop of color. I'll knot my thread, and now I'm ready to attach the front of my ornament to the back. I'll stitch all the way around, and we'll come back and take a look at the finished ornament. And here's the completed ornament. We have our winter scene with our evergreen trees, a little snow in the distance, and the back of the ornament with the number 9. So that's how I created my winter scene. I really enjoyed stitching those little trees and just adding them until I felt it was filled up nicely. If you take part, please snap a photo of your work and post it on social media, and be sure to tag me. Come back tomorrow for Prompt 10, our final prompt in this series.